the introductory and the basic concepts. It's now time to get into the key facts about how you're going to learn and what features you need to learn about to identify plants. Once again, this is an introductory course. It is a basics course. It's to help you get started. There is so much more to this, and I tried to make it clear as much as possible during this course that we are going to focus only on certain elements. We're not going to go into depth about every single piece because it's overwhelming. I think, and most others would agree with me, that the best thing to do is to get the basic concepts, learn those, learn the theory, see someone else learn it, then practice it yourself and continue to learn it. Then from there, you understand the basics, and then you'll have more of your own questions come up, and that's when it's time to dive deeper. And that's what the intermediate and advanced plant identifications courses are for. So let's start with today the parts of a leaf diagram and the definitions. Hopefully you can see quite clearly on the slide this leaf diagram. We're going to focus on three things here. We're going to focus on the lamina, the lobe, and the veins. So the lamina is what I would say the surface of the leaf. Generally speaking, when someone uses the word lamina, they're talking about the surface of the leaf. Sometimes it's easily confused with the margin. They are different things. The margin is only the edge of the leaf. The lamina is the edge as well as the whole of the surface level of the leaf. Keep in mind, leaves have many different forms, shapes, and maybe even curves, but these are still part of the lamina. As New South Wales plant identification website would say, it is an expanded portion of a leaf. Next up, let's look at a lobe. You can see that the lobe and the sinus, don't worry about the sinus too much for now. It really just means the gap between a lobe and the rest of the leaf. A lobe is a part of a leaf that sticks out from the main part. Lobes come in many different variations and of different depths, but the most important thing to know is when something is a lobe versus when something is a serrate or toothed edge. Lobes are usually a lot more distinct, and lobes are usually a lot more distinct. The PlantNet definition here is a lobe is having rounded or pointed parts that stick out from the main part of a leaf. And the next thing is vein or veins. The veins are a strand of vascular tissue that help transport nutrition around leaves. Veins come in many different ways, but generally speaking, and in this diagram, you can see the vein stretches out from the midrib. Usually this is the case for most plants, but they get a lot more complex, and there's many different variations and different formations of veins within leaves. If you ever want to look at the venation of a leaf, put it up to the sky, maybe even towards the sun without looking at the sun, and close one eye, and you're going to see the sun point light through the leaf, and it'll bring out these veins. The next parts we're going to look at on this diagram is the midrib, petiole, axillary bud, and apex. The midrib is a pretty common feature in plants, however it's not always there, but it is something to notice on the leaf if you do pick up a leaf. The midrib is a term applied to a ridge, which is often the primary vein or the midvein of a leaf. Midribs can be enlarged, can be depressed, and all kinds of other things, and these are more botanical terms that I'll go through in another time, but the most important thing to understand is that a midrib is something that runs through the middle of the leaf. It happens in a lot of leaves, and it's something to notice because it's often a feature that gets spoken about. The next one is the petiole. Petiole is simply the stalk of a leaf. From the main branch to the leaf, it is that small section. The petiole can change in length and sometimes can be hairy, amongst other things. This is something to take note of as it can have quite important features and be a feature of the identification of that species. The next thing to look at, and this will come in more importantly later when we talk about simple and compound leaves, is the axillary bud. An axillary bud is a bud or buds formed in the angle between the stem and the subtending leaf. So as you can see in the diagram, it's that little orange bit, and these are quite obvious most of the time. Almost always you can see them on a plant. The axillary bud indicates that that is a leaf. I'll get into this later within the simple and compound leaves, but it is an important factor when looking at a leaf to understand where the axillary buds are. And the apex is simply the tip of the leaf. These can be rounded, sharp, pointy, all kinds of things, but it's important to understand when you're looking at a dichotomous key or researching your plant that they might talk about the apex, and it's good to understand that the apex is the point and that you've taken a photo or have an idea of what to look for within your leaf and the key.